So I'm here to talk about marriage. I've been married 32 years. I've known my husband 50 years this year. We grew up in the same town, went to school together. We were childhood friends. We never dated till I asked him to be my grad escort in grade 12. And then we just dated sporadically because I moved quite far away. We were from a very remote part of Alberta, so pretty much anybody who was going to do anything with their life away from farming moved away. Farming and rigging, oil rigs, gas rigs. I moved to Edmonton for a year and then I moved to Montreal. So he was a Westerner and I moved out east. And I didn't really see much of him again except for when I came home to visit until he moved to Montreal to do his PhD. And I went to visit him and I thought he was marriable by then, and he was probably 26. We came from quite a challenging town. It was a real pioneer place, and then when the oil and gas came, there was a lot of money, and so then there was more crime, more drugs. So it was a rough place to grow up, and although I knew that he was a good person, and I knew his family, I thought they were good people. Being married to him, I wasn't too sure about. So in choosing a mate, it turns out I was looking for somebody who would be a good father to my kids. And his dad taught me grade 6. He looked like a good father. And my husband also seemed to carry those same traits. And now that he was getting his PhD, I thought he could provide for kids if I was going to have children, and I planned to. So I married him. So in terms of choosing a mate, I did choose him a lot. It had a lot to do with having a family. So that's my experience. Now, we've been married 32 years. And 32 years, you'd think, that's starting to be a long time. And so we have been through our trials. And I would probably say that he's been devoted to me the whole time, and I have been devoted to him, but also questioned my relationship a number of times. But we were always really good at negotiating, and he was a really dedicated negotiator. Nothing got by him without a negotiation. That was with our marriage and with our children. And a negotiation is so helpful because that means that you've both decided that the decision is okay. So then you can't really, blame the other person that they did something behind your back or without your knowledge. And often those are the kinds of petty, superficial fights people have, are that they're not, paid attention to, they're never taken seriously, like all of this kind of stuff. But if you negotiate, and you negotiate, truthfully, you can come to agreements and then move forward in your relationship rather than hanging out talking about the past. Another thing I would say, in being married, you have a duty to fulfill your marital vows and to be with someone through sickness and in health, and we've had our trials with sickness, and we have stood by each other, and that takes a lot of spiritual faith to stay with someone when they are sick. Now in terms of getting older, because now we're 60, and so we've been through raising children, we've been through having our children leave home, and now we're grandparents. And so this is a different stage of life, and it's a very liberating stage of life because you don't have your children at home anymore. And so you are, what my husband said at the beginning was, we were teenagers. It was like teenagers with money. Because we still, I think we were 55 or so when our kids started leaving home, or maybe even 50. And so we had good health, and we also had some money. So we had a few good fun years, you know, that were just fun to be together again in a different way. And we did enjoy that. And one thing my husband said that I thought was a very useful thing to say, and then I'll tell you something that I thought up. He said, how many adventures do you have in your life? And that's really something to look at when you turn 50, because you do have more adventures than you know left in your life, but you can count them pretty much on one hand. And so if you're going to do anything in your marriage and outside of your marriage, it's time to do it, because time is ticking by, and you have to think of these things practically. So that's one thing. The other thing is that although you are sharing this domain with someone and these vows with someone, you have a vow to yourself to be true to who you are through the marriage, so that you don't become resentful for lost opportunities. And you can't blame those things on other people. We all make our own decisions when it comes down to it. We make the final decision, and we have to abide by that and not blame other people for the pickles that we might find ourselves in. We have to take responsibility for who we are, how we got here, and also have some acceptance that whoever we were and however we grew up and however we got here was how it was going to be here at this moment. Couldn't have been any different. So you can be thankful and at least accepting of the way that you got here, even if it was painful, and even if there was a lot of hardship, and try to move forward in a spirit of generosity and gratitude, as well as looking for where you can be helpful to people rather than to see what you can get for yourself. And you know, and that pretty much goes with the first day of being married, that you're there to serve your spouse. You're there to serve them in whatever seems to be a good thing to be helpful with. Obviously, you let them do the things they can do alone, so you don't take away their independence, and you don't, even with your children, you don't want to keep them infantile. You want them to become independent and grow up to be strong, curious people. And so the more, you know, the more independence you can give one another, the better for everyone. Now, when we first had children, I had 2 kids within 2 years, and so I was really, really busy. And my husband felt that we weren't having enough alone time. And I suggested that we schedule dates. And he thought that that was going to take the spontaneity out of a romance. And I said, well, you know, when we were dating, we made dates. You know, you called me and we went out. We did, like, what's wrong with doing that now? So he said, okay, we'd give it a try. Now that was when we were in our 20s, and now we're nearing 60. And that's how we have done this for all these years. And now it's really easy, because now maybe I'm not interested, and there's been lots of times where I wasn't in the mood, but that isn't the number one reason to be together. You'll find that if you schedule a date like you would with anyone else but your spouse, if you schedule a date and you know what to do on that date. What do we do on that date? We have a shower first, right? So we have a shower, we dress in something nice, we put on some music, maybe light some candles, maybe dance a little bit. We have some time together that is not interrupted by anyone else, or any phone calls or any emails or any discussions about other things except for what's between us. And those evenings were so special to us that we've kept up this tradition. And now we've been married 32 years and we still hold to that tradition. And it's really good because you don't have to think about what you're going to do. Once you've decided how you're going to do this, all you have to do is say yes. And then you go through the motions. And by the time you have showered and you've put on something nice, you put on your lipstick and your earrings, and you've gone upstairs and you've danced a little bit, that in itself, even if you do it the first few times and you don't feel any sort of warmth towards your partner because you've let things slide and you haven't had a good relationship, close relationship, you haven't kept the fires burning, then you have to go through the motions and just go through these dates. And I would schedule them a couple of times a week anyway, and rekindle what it is that you remember about this person, because to see this person as a whole and not just what bothers you about them is the magic to understanding and being in the presence of another human being, truly in the presence of another human being. So those are my thoughts on marriage. Thanks.